elected officials accountable, and to truly represent our community as an advocate. And then I published my second piece, The Way for Local Journalism. This is essentially just supporting every locally owned independent publication that you can. That is the key to any journalistic organization as well as people's success. And so after a few months of running the Hutchinson Tribune, doing what we can, and me going back to school, that fall in November, Joey actually connected me with Mike Blender of the Editor and Publisher magazine. And he discussed the Hutchinson Tribune and how we as a newspaper got started in our community. It was a very nice experience.
And then we were in the January 2024 issue of Editor and Publisher magazine, which is the premier trade magazine in the publishing world. We had an article, a gentleman from Colorado by the name of Bob Selleck called us, and we sent him some photos. He interviewed Michael, he interviewed me, and you can see Michael impressed the industry leaders. Let's see, we verified the facts. In many ways, it was just another night of reporting, except we broke the rules, and we became the subject instead of the objective observers. But it felt a little weird, but it was a really good article. And then we were the subject of Robin Blender, who is Mike Blender's daughter, who's the editor of the magazine, and she wrote in the editorial, owning and running a local news publication is an overwhelming appointment for anyone of any age, let alone a 16-year-old who's also balancing schoolwork, extracurricular activities, and teenage social life.
And so following that, I was also featured in Editor and Publisher's Top 25 Under 35, which is a celebration. Thank you. Thank you. And essentially, when they asked for my advice, I didn't know what to say. I just do it. That's all you can really do with something like this. And so following that, I also had the pleasure of going on Kansas City's NPR affiliate, KCUR, where I said there's never not news in a community, and that is true regardless of the size. Every single person, as we are here, has a story to tell, even if you're just simply speaking to somebody on the street. It's a great lesson we can all learn.
Now, Michael teases me because he works on government articles, and I do culture, which he calls the fun beat. Usually at theater productions, Third Thursday, and other things that are going on. You can see some photos I took, and yes, I do need to get a professional camera. Those who say there isn't anything to do in Hutchinson need to read our weekly upcoming events and look at my calendar. It's crazy.
And one of those things that we actually did was go to the beautiful Fox Theater and watch The Blues Brothers, out of all movies. If you can't tell, I like to dress up, and so I dressed up as Elwood, because who would want to be Jake?
Hey.
Sorry.
I felt that.
And so it was just a way for us to connect with the community and watch a great show.
And then we joined in with the Smallville Fest this year. Michael was the official Clark Kent. You can see he pulled it off. And we helped with the medallion hunt, and all traditions begin somewhere in some time, and then they continue and grow, and we want to be a big part of that here in Hutchinson, in Reno County.
Is there a phone booth in here I can use? So, with fun and journalism, there comes some error. So if you can read the headline, that is what I call Gina's column. Gina yells at something. This was actually published on Sunday. So all of our subscribers got to see Gina yells at something, which I think is great.
Yeah, it was great. Anyway, that old lady yells at something won first place in Division 1, 2, and 3 for editorial writing at the 2024 Kansas Press Association Awards. So yelling at Evergy is great. The Tribune won 8 awards, and we swept government writing. So when a high school student asks you to do something extraordinary, the answer is not get off my lawn, weirdo.
Even though that could have very well applied to me. Simply just say yes. Great things can happen when 2 people or 1 person or how many people decide to just start doing it. It was not perfect when we began, nor is it perfect now. Gina and I have not had any sort of formal training in journalism, but throughout the little over a year we've done this, it has truly shown how anyone in their community can make a difference. I would encourage you to check us out if you are interested in local journalism. And just remember, every community needs local journalism. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity, and the time for investment in it is now. Thank you very much.
Tarynn Borders Haag is up next with the history of the Anna Richardson Brown House in Nickerson, who built it, its current condition, and what it currently needs. She will tell us about the state and national register and how to use resources wisely. Her goals for the property are to make this house into a community building, to inspire community spirit, and inspire others to save history. Please welcome Tarynn.
Anna Risley arrived in Nickerson by train from Illinois in the year of 1876. Anna started work as a school teacher at the age of 16, and at 21, she married a respected train conductor, businessman, and an original founder of the town, Mark Richardson, in the year of 1887. They moved into this fine brick home, had 2 children, and a bright future. Unfortunately, Mark passed suddenly in 1892, leaving Anna to manage the estate, the 2 kids. She then married L.C. Brown 3 years later in a small ceremony inside the brick home. In the year of 1900, they had added on to the house as Mr. Brown was a very prominent and prosperous citizen of Nickerson. He had grown his wealth, owning the local newspaper, real estate, and offering personal loans. He and Anna amalgamated 2 banks into one and continued to prosper. So in 1915, they just went crazy and they doubled the size of the house again with a massive addition by raising the roof to even add a dance floor. These 2 pioneers were truly living the American dream by participating in the founding of a town and also prospering personally. It has a very unique hand rope elevator that runs from the basement 4 floors up to the attic dance floor. There is 101 windows that are really showing the wealth, 42 doorways, curved plaster walls, wrought iron registers, amazing woodwork throughout, the original ice box, and even a central vacuum. There are glass doorknobs throughout the entire house, unexpected massive room sizes, huge closets in each bedroom. The overall general complexity of the residence as an elegant, finished, high-style house is what conveys its architectural importance and uniqueness. Mr. Brown passed away in 1929, leaving Anna at age 59 with 3 more children and a generous estate. They were highly thought of in the community and highly successfully financial as seen in their home's unique features. This diagram shows the 1880 brick house foundation in blue, the 1900 limestone foundation, and you can see the 1915 concrete block is in green. The current condition of the foundation is poor, and the concrete blocks and the bricks are failing. There have been minimal repairs done for the last 20 years, along with the removal of the gutter system and flooding in the basement has contributed to the continued deterioration of the foundation. The removal of the gutter system has also contributed to roof damage and leaking. There should be a hidden gutter, a tray that moves the water away from the house to the downspouts. Now that area is just holding water and creating rot. The carriage house has 4 horse stalls. It was built around 1910 and is also in need of foundation, roof, and stabilization work in order to save it. Overall, the entire property has been in disrepair for many years with broken windows and overgrown trees. I am Tarynn. I was born and raised in Nickerson, and I've dearly loved this house my whole life as it is 2 doors down from my granny's house and right by our town's grade school. I found myself daydreaming each day, walking or riding my bike past it. So when it came up for sale, I knew instantly that I was the one that wanted to buy the house so that I could ensure that it was restored properly and that it could be shared with our community. From day one, I started off with a prayer, and I knew I would be relying on my faith and my ability to learn. So I was dedicated and determined to find a way to save this house. I learned that historical registration allowed for access to resources that I would need in order to afford a restoration on a house that would cost more than it was worth in the end. So I am proud, however, to announce that after 2.5 of really hard work, that Anna's house has been listed on the state and the National Register for Historic Places, allowing for a 40% return on my investment through tax credits, and I was thankfully just awarded a reimbursement-style grant for $100,000 to go towards the foundation from the state of Kansas. My current needs and the current biggest challenge I have will be acquiring adequate working capital in order to complete the project before it has become too late. This could be in the form of cash donations or in the form of financing from any institution and, of course, from any fundraisers that I can have. So I will be learning window and plaster restoration to help with my bottom line. Eventually, I want to turn it into a museum quality location with period appropriate furnishings and all. My goals are to share the history of the town, the family, and the house with anyone who really wants to know. I will offer tours. I'll offer meeting rooms, could be a wedding venue, or just as a family gathering place for large meals. I do not plan to ever live in this house because I truly want to share it with my community and anyone who loves history. This is a well-known and a very cared about property by many people in Nickerson, and I hope to inspire others to save history, boost community spirit, and I want to respectfully honor the family that lived their lives and spent their time in this house. I'd like to give God the glory for my accomplishments. And if you would like to know any more and for the rest of the story or how you can help, you can visit our Facebook page. I have a brand new website. Or you can stop by Nickerson. Tomorrow we're having Clear Nearly Days, Saturday and Sunday at 7, if you'd like to stop by for a yard tour. Thank you guys for listening.
Joel Iwashige used to be really good at being good at things. This is the story of how a kid who wanted to be safe, brilliant, and independently wealthy ended up in the uncharted waters of starting a business, facing his imperfection each day, and building toward our shared thriving. It's a story of how, as Leonard Cohen says, the light gets in. Here's Joel.
So, you know how some people build a whole identity around how smart they are? Don't you love hanging out with them? I was that kid. I loved reading and I knew a lot. But somewhere along the way, I decided I was going to build a perfect life. I'd be brilliant, my life would be safe and predictable, and I'd be rich. My path to the perfect life started out pretty well. When we got a family computer, it came with some games that you could actually program. It turned out I really enjoyed programming, and I literally became the kid programming in the basement. I took a college programming class when I was 13 and started work on a paid project for a software company shortly after. For another part of my scheme, I fell in love with investing. Dave Ramsey set the vision. I started learning about stocks, and I intended to have $3 million in the bank by the time I turned 35. I was going to be independently wealthy. I even wrote programs to help me calculate how much I'd need to invest to get there. I started full-time in software when I was 16. Most of my college career was part-time, but again, it was pretty clear that grades were the way to succeed in college, so of course I worked hard to be a curve spoiler. I finished HCC and Sterling College with a 4.0. Even in college, Sterling's social entrepreneurship emphasis called my goals of wealth into question. But I was still studying investing. I started reading Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's billionaire partner. But even his book talked about the waste of having so much of society's energy focused on financial markets. Things kept on cracking a bit at a time. I finished my degree and spent 6 months in Bangladesh helping launch a software office. I was still playing it fairly safe, but in a new culture, connecting with people in slums and people in national office. Like Mark Twain said, the experience was fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. In 2013, I, my wife, and our 8-month-old moved to Bangladesh. Still in performance mode, but I'd been evolving. I was still doing software, but I was learning a language, fumbling my way through everyday life in a new culture. And did I mention that we had an 8-month-old? In Dhaka, I cycled to work. Being a minnow, sharing the road with buses, cars, motorbikes, and rickshaws forces its own kind of flexibility. I learned to be a lot more assertive on the road. And there, and when talking with the building manager, and when the power went out, whether I wanted it or not, I learned to deal with a life I couldn't control. I'd been good at writing software, but soon I was fumbling my way through leading a team, then through keeping the business running. If I'd been an artist in software, I felt like I was holding a management paintbrush with boxing gloves. But beyond the frustration, I did start to taste the growth in imperfection. Around 5 years later, the cracks in my dreams were chasms. I loved a lot about my life, but the air was trying to kill me. We were far from family, and I saw hungry people and huge social stresses around me every day, with no apparent way for one person to make a difference. And there were other things. This is the rubble after a suicide bomber blew the front off the hotel across the street from my office. Ironically, I was relieved to learn that it was just a political attack, but actually seeing the rubble from the office window was a pretty clear example that I wasn't living in a perfect world. For several years before that, there had been a terrorist assassination campaign, and I'd tried to take the few precautions I could. But we were visiting in the States when we heard that one of the restaurants we'd been wanting to try as a family had a hostage situation. Several days later, we learned that most of the hostages had died in the first few hours of that siege. We moved back to the States so we could better support family and start recovering from our own stress. My ability to just perform was over, along with my simple story of be good at stuff, get rich. We returned in January 2020 and moved into the tranquil time of a COVID pandemic and the 2020 elections. But I was able to work from home, and we spent time exploring outdoors and reconnecting with nature in Kansas. I fell in love with resilient native plants, and our own souls were able to put down some deep roots. The urban jungle gets you good at stretching for refreshment, and Reno County is a rich environment to find it. I waffled for a while among pursuing a seminary program, a master's in computer science, or an MBA. In October of 2020, I ended up taking the plunge into an MBA. In my application, I told them I wanted to have tools to build my own business, but also to help others who are building stuff that's good for the world. I'm still working on software with colleagues in Bangladesh and the US, and also launching a new consulting business. A full-time job, studies, and entrepreneurship have led to a lot of strange and weird hours, and long hours. But I've also found myself in a lot of new relationships, reaching across the country and the world, and I love living in that network. As I've reconnected to Reno County, I've found community to support me. My church has been hugely supportive and invested in the broader community. Folks around the Community Foundation, Startup Hutch, and KLC. People invested in helping Hutch and Reno County thrive. My MBA cohort, and various delightfully niche online communities. Did you know that prairie plants weave a deep web of roots? An English garden looks beautiful, but if you stop watering it in the Kansas summer, it will die. But prairie plants will take a scorching summer or a prairie fire, and when the time is right, they'll come back fresh and green. Returning to Kansas is hard. Maintaining and resurrecting relationships is hard. Launching a new business is hard. But the generous web of roots in this community have made all of that easier. Each of you is part of that web, and you have my gratitude for that. That messy web of connection is what we all need to build to survive and thrive. When individual performance is your identity, you'll never be enough. But when you know you're broken, you know everything and everyone is broken, and you reach out to build community despite all that, that's how the light gets in.
Expressing creativity is a very personal journey for Kathie Moore. The genesis of a painting may come from a variety of sources. Basically, it's about sharing her view of the world. Please welcome Kathie with inspiration, imagination, indignation.
Okay, let's do this. I paint because I love the process. It's just a bonus if others appreciate the results. Inspiration is my guide when expressing my view of the world. When visiting a friend, we came on this delightful creature, a Luna moth. They're nocturnal in habit, so it was an unexpected treat. Living in a rural area, we have an unobstructed view of the sky. Those skies may be a fiery orange at sunset, or a sickly green before hail hits, or lavender and peach at dawn, and sometimes a deep indigo blue before a thunderstorm. Pure magic. A painting may tell you what to do. I took a photo of this fruit tree against a brick wall, and that's how I intended to paint it. But as I progressed, it was obvious it wanted an entirely different background. The painting got its way. Memories often inspire a painting. This image struck a chord with me. All three of our children were born a week or more past due date. I think it's the dog's expression that really makes this painting. Every year I enter the state plein air competition, the state fair. Finding a fresh approach to represent this iconic event can be tricky. Luckily, I met Mike, who for years has tended the entry gates. He agreed to let me paint him, and we got first place. When our youngest started school, I went back to HCC for a drawing class. That decision was to be life-altering. The dictionary defines a landing as a place to change direction. I see this image found in Lockman Hall as representing my change in direction. As a child, I went there for Saturday matinees. In high school, for a movie date. In the 70s, I was on the stage for a live production of Applause. I will always be thankful for the rebirth of this historic landmark. Okay, imagination is the endless source of subject matter. These could be labeled lessons with produce. I enjoy doing still lifes, so after gathering the ingredients for a favorite cold weather dish, I decided they had to be painted. Apples are often painted by artists, so why not use them to make a statement about exclusion or segregation? You may notice I often use this horizontal format. More time than I expected. Beauty truly is in the eye of the beholder. They may seem as trash by many, but I found these onions, leftovers, irresistible. It's all about finding beauty in the commonplace. And I paint a lot of onions. This entry for a juried exhibit prompted a teacher I met to relate using it as a teachable moment for her second grade class when they visited the show. Can you tell I like playing with words and phrases in my titles? And yes, we're back to the onions again. Those fragile, paper-thin, translucent skins, I love painting them, even though they can be a challenge. They are superb models, though. And this is more of that wordplay with apologies to Einstein. Eggs are surprisingly complex objects to portray, but who can resist the sight of that deep purple eggplant on a cream-colored cloth? Some of you may remember Harry Belafonte's Banana Boat song from the 50s. A younger crowd might recall it from Beetlejuice. I like to think that viewers walk away humming it under their breath. Now, a change. Indignation can also be a motivator. We live surrounded by pastures and fields, so we're always on the lookout for wildfires. I saw that even this controlled burn is a potential threat. To others, it's just land management. After hearing a panel discussion by school administrators about the challenges they're facing, I thought of this crumbling abandoned schoolhouse in Arlington. I just hope it's not a sign of more to come. While waiting for a dental appointment, I couldn't ignore the unique wall decorations, some hunters' pride and joy. It seemed to me, though, this mounted trophy had a truly vengeful look in its eye. A variation on a familiar saying came to mind when I searched for a title for this one. It was my response to the truly disturbing scenes from the 2017 Charlottesville protests. It's not always about beauty. This one was about my concerns over the state's prior economic woes. When I told a friend it was dedicated to a former governor, her unexpected response was, "Oh, I get it. A horse is bleep." Finally, cliches can be overdone, but after seeing so many paintings of koi, I decided I wanted to create my interpretation of the subject. It not only sold, but it won an award. And that is the added benefit when one of your visions really speaks to somebody else. So thanks for letting me share the way I look at the world. And please enjoy art in more than 20-second increments.
This presentation is about a book written by a person in long-term recovery. It details the development of his addiction, giving a preview to what the book is about. Here's Dakotah Sanders.
Hello, I'm Dakotah Sanders. I'm a person in long-term recovery. My sobriety date is September 1st of 2017. I was born here in, thank you. I was born here in Hutchinson, Kansas. My childhood was not like the average person. It was very violent, very dark. My father suffered from mental health issues. My mother was an addict and alcoholic for majority or part of my life. And so with that creates a very volatile household, which also contributes to my development. And looking at this picture, you see a child of innocence, you know, and at first glance, there's nothing really more than innocence to deeper than the surface. But the truth and the reality behind that is not the case. I lost my innocence at a very young age. I score a 9 out of 10 on the ACEs test, And for those of you who don't know, it stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences Test. So what this test does, and it can predict with great accuracy the trajectory of somebody's life based on their experiences. And so what it does is it measures abuse in the physical, emotional, and sexual sense, as well as neglect in the physical and emotional sense, and then household dysfunction, mental illness, etc. I started using drugs at the age of 8. I was given drugs from an adult. My mother needed a break, and so she allowed her friend, a family friend, to take me to the lake where he gave me mind-altering substances. By the age of 14, I was experimenting with numerous amounts of mind-altering substances. I was involved in distribution of substances, which ultimately led me to get into a lot of trouble. I was raided for the first time when I was 16 years old for selling. Given the trajectory of my life, I understood that something was not right, that something was not okay, and that I needed to make a change. And the only idea of escape that I could contemplate in my mind was to join the Marine Corps. I knew that the military had the discipline that I needed to escape my path. However, I blew my knee out and was disqualified, prescribed opiates, which sent me down a very dark path. A very dark path of chaos and destruction. I was about 155 pounds there and about 210 right now. The end of that path landed me in the Reno County jail, where I was facing 110 months in prison. And it took me about 2 months to quit crawling out of my skin from withdrawals. And when I finally did, it felt like I came out of a coma. I couldn't believe the state of my life. And so what I did is I started to look within myself. I started to ask myself questions. Why do I respond this way? Why does this bother me so much? And what I found is, outside of my withdrawals and the physical dependence on drugs, is that I had created these mental prisons for myself. I've been told I was worthless so many times in my life that I really believed that, and my entire life was spent validating that. When I got into recovery and got myself together, what I found is my purpose in this world, and that is to help people. Given my life experiences, what I've found is I have a very unique ability to empathize and relate with individuals who are also struggling on a very wide range of happenings. Another blessing is my wife, and I honestly could have put a whole 4-minute presentation talking about how much I love her. But to be honest with you, this form of myself does not exist without her. She has helped me see pieces of myself that I could have never seen alone. These are 2 of my beautiful children. I have 4. She pushed me to pursue education so that I can really get into work and help people. So I graduated from HCC. It took me 5 years to get my associate's degree while working at a grain elevator. And for those of you that don't know, it's very grueling work. And I wrote a book, which is the purpose of this whole speech, right? And so what I see in society is that people are stuck in this debate of disease and choice, but it's really so much deeper than that, right? Because what leads up to the disease of addiction? How does that happen? So that's what my book is about. Today, I work at Horizons as a peer support specialist. I've been there since September, and I absolutely love it. I work on the ACT team, and we are frontline business to the mental health crisis right now. And I enjoy being back in the streets, just not in the same type of way, right? So the ACT team, what we are is that stands for Assertive Community Treatment Team. That means that we're under bridges. We're coming to your house. We are a wraparound service with multiple providers. And we're all making sure that the care for our caseload and our clients are coordinated. So we have peer supports, nurses, med providers, therapists, and case managers. Due to what I'm trying to do in my life and my purpose, there has been an award-winning media company who has taken interest in my story, and they wish to do a documentary on it. And right now we're in the process of finding funding for that. You know, and really what this whole thing is about, you know, this whole book is, I can only meet so many people in person, right? But the book, the documentary, this is how we can reach on a macro level. This is how I can inspire and I can talk and I can help liberate people from these mental prisons that they've locked themselves into. And the most important of all things is my family and my kids. During my addiction, you know what I mean, it's not a very good example to leave, but I have corrected my ways and I've healed a lot. And so the example that I wish to leave is that you can come back from anything. You know, you don't have to be in a negative state. You don't have to be angry and sad all the time. You can heal and you can persevere. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Powerful stuff, and we'll be back. So powerful, I dropped the mic. We will be back after a brief intermission. We'll start again at 8 o'clock. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, apparently Dakotah's message was so strong that it pierced the plastic and shattered it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, I tried to twist a thing that I shouldn't try to twist. It's really what I think happened. Yeah, that's what it is. Oh, my bad. I mean, I assume that was my fault. Those aren't the same. Great. Good.
I can fix it. I need my keys, probably.
Okay. Great. I muted. I turned those all the way down. So
Yes.
Remember.
Yes. favorite things about Hutchinson is it's the right size town that you can really get involved. And I wanted to, so I'm involved. Great. Oh, let's see. Ideally,
Yeah, it's pretty small. This is the biggest one I could find.
even my key fits in there perfectly, but I can't get enough. I think a good purchase on this to get it to actually twist it out.
Okay. But you got a backup, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
question is this more or less good for picking it up?
They'll still need to get close to it. But, it's right here.
Okay.
We'll need to do a quick sound check on it.
Okay.
So I'll turn those back up.
Yeah, that works. Check, check. Check, check, no. Yep.
Good job.
Well, thank you.
Hearing audio is good as long as they speak into the microphone.
Yes.
Yes, unfortunately, the microphone, like
The mic clip broke.
the episode where that dropped was because this literally just shattered. So,
And I need to get this adapter out of this plastic, and I can't do that.
so everyone might have to hold it.
Interesting. Okay.
Does that does that strike you as impossible?
Sounds like my summer. Nothing goes as planned.
I mean, like no joke, just like I went to move this and literally just shattered.
You just crumbled it.
Yep, too strong.
Can I hold it?
I think that's what we're gonna do. I think that's what we should just do. We'll just have people hold it. It'll be fine.
Okay.
There will be an unfortunate bonk every time somebody sets it down.
I'll just hand it to you.
Fine. Yes, turn that all the way down.
And Aubrey can hand it to Carrie.
Just turn that one down.
Yep.
Welcome back after intermission. Let's hear it once again for the first half with all the presenters. Ignore this announcement for all the people who are listening, but presenters, we had a technical difficulty. As you can see, the microphone is being held, so we'll be handing it off to the next person back and forth. Yes. Yeah. I don't know. It's my summer. Nothing goes as planned. In 2017, the Great American Eclipse passed through the northeast corner of Kansas. Here in Hutchinson, Andrew Davidson missed out on seeing it in its totality. Determined to see the next great eclipse, he only had to wait until 2024. On April 7th, he and a friend began a 2-day, 14-mile backpacking trip on the Ouachita National Recreation Trail in western Arkansas to watch the great North American eclipse in totality. Please welcome Andrew with Backpacking to the Black Hole Sun.
Okay. So this is me standing on the courthouse roof with a box on my head at lunchtime on August 2017. Why is there a box on my head? Well, I looked up an article on the internet about how to make a camera obscura to see the eclipse without burning your eyes. This MacGyvered thing I had didn't work too well. On August 21st, 2017, this great American eclipse passed through the northeast corner of Kansas. Unfortunately, here in Hutchinson, only 94% of the sun was covered. That sounds like a lot, but the sun's really bright, and you could not see it without the special glasses. All wasn't lost. You could still see some cool effects of the eclipse in the shadows under the trees. I took this picture behind the courthouse underneath a tree, and you can see the pinhole effect I was trying to use with that stupid box on the ground here. And you can kind of see the crescent shapes of the sun. And this is a picture I took of the moon as it shaded the sun using the special glasses as a filter on my cell phone. And still really remarkable how bright 6% of the sun can be. It got kind of dark, but it still seemed like daylight here in Hutchinson. A new hobby of mine is hiking and backpacking. Here I am with two of my friends, Jeremy and Stephanie, as we set out to hike a 17-mile trek in the Chizos Mountains of the Big Bend National Park in Texas. It sits on the border between Mexico and Texas. After a long 7-mile first day hike and a 2,000-foot elevation gain, we reached our first campsite sitting on the south rim of the mountain range, watching the sun set over Mexico and the Rio Grande Valley. This was a really beautiful experience, and we were the only people around. It was great. A couple of days later, we hit Boot Canyon. It's named after that upside-down cowboy boot sticking up in the ground. It was a beautiful little valley with its own little microclimate. We didn't encounter anyone except for a mama black bear and her 2 cubs. Don't worry, we survived that encounter. While we were there, another cool thing happened. A blood moon lunar eclipse the first night we were there at 3 in the morning. Big Bend is an international dark sky park, so there was little light pollution and the view was pretty epic. This gave me an idea for my next big hike. The next total eclipse in America was close to home in Arkansas. That blue line in the middle is the path of greatest totality, where it would last about 4 minutes. So I narrowed my target location between Mena and Hot Springs area, and that was going to give me the best view in the United States. What's really cool about this area is that there's a 120-mile Ouachita Trail that goes from Oklahoma to Little Rock. Our target area was Big Brushy Creek, which is right there in the middle, and that was very close to that blue line of totality. It offered the best views without crowds of people. So on Sunday, April 7th, we drove to the Big Brushy parking area to hike to the middle of nowhere to see the eclipse away from civilization and the massive amounts of people and traffic that we're going to see. We didn't see a single person on our first day of the hike. So we went through the thick forest hiking to find the best place to get the best view possible. We needed to hike about 7 miles our first day to get to the campsite, and that entailed climbing a mountain or 2 to get there. So off we went, Jeremy leading the way. Jeremy doesn't sweat. He doesn't take food breaks. He rarely drinks water. I think he might be part machine. He was in way better shape than me, and I think it was his triathlon training that made him that way. One of the cool things about the Ouachita Trail is it's rarely utilized, and the best time to hike is between November and April because the temperature is mild, the bugs are low, and the weather those 2 days we were lucky was excellent. This sign here gave this Kansas Flatlander some fear. Why on earth would anyone name something Blowout Mountain? In reality, this wasn't too bad, but the sign was terrifying to me. I think we only ended up having to climb about 700 feet to get to the top. After 7 miles, we found our shelter house at Fiddler's Creek. It was a nice little shelter with a table to sit on, platforms to sleep on. We opted to set up our tents inside the shelter after seeing some giant spiders and wasps living in the shelter with us. They weren't bad hosts. So Jeremy started a fire. I walked to Fiddler's Creek to get water to filter, and we ate our dehydrated meals and planned our next day, which would include climbing Blowout Mountain once again. The best place to watch would be back near the beginning of the trail, actually. So after climbing Blowout Mountain again and coming back to this Forest Service road, we decided that was where the best view would be. And we got there about 11 a.m. The eclipse wasn't going to start until about 12:50. So we sat and relaxed, ate lunch, watched the moon slowly overtake the sun in the sky. They tell you as a first-time eclipse viewer not to worry about taking pictures and drink it all in. And they are right. This was the only photo I tried to take. When the moon made it across the sun, everything went dark and there was nothing like it. The best way to describe it was the moon was a black hole surrounded by this white corona. Towards the end, the sun peeked through a little valley on the moon, and it looked like a ruby ring. And then it was all over, and it was bright again. If I lived 5,000 years ago, I would have thought the world was ending, but it wasn't, and it was beautiful. The next one, it might pass through Reno County in 2045. I'll see you there.
A year and a half ago, Dashona Mahoney got serious about her health, weight, and fitness. Now she is 60 pounds and several clothes sizes down. But this would not have been possible without all the friends she has made along the way. Here's Dashona with Fitness is More Fun with Friends.
And there they are. So this, we're missing one. There we go. This is me on the left doing one of my favorite things, singing in Stage 9's production of Little Shop of Horrors. Here I was at my heaviest weight ever, over 250 pounds. And on the right is me just a couple of months ago, down to less than 170 pounds, which is lower than I've ever been since I moved away to college. 20 seconds is longer than you think it is. This is me and my kids at the happiest place on earth, Disney World. I was happy, but I was not healthy. Trying to keep up with them was exhausting, and since it was May, it was hot. And when you're that heavy, hot is hot. Hot, hot. So by the time these little guys come along, my beautiful grandbabies, Owen and Oakland, who you can hear in the background there, I had lost 50 pounds, but then gained and lost the same 30 pounds twice. I knew I was going to have to change some things if I was going to be able to keep up with these little spunky guys. I've been a member of a gym for over 15 years. That's me on the right side there. Now, I tried to stay active and eat right, but since I also like to stay very busy in the community, I convinced myself that I didn't have time to take care of myself. Working out and cooking healthy meals just took too much time. In 2020, after COVID restrictions let up, a couple of my dear friends, Samantha and Chris Smith, decided to open their own fitness studio, Beats Fitness. The first classes took place just 4 years ago at the fairgrounds until they secured a spot in the Hutchinson Mall. It's called Beats Fitness. We don't have a bunch of fancy gym equipment, but what we do have is a great group of people that we call our Fit Fam, and a deep desire to help people achieve their fitness goals. We get loud and spunky and have a really good time together. We have a ton of fun at Beats, and we especially enjoy celebrating every holiday. But we always do it up real big for Halloween and Christmas. Here I was a member of the 3 Blind Mice, and I have a huge collection of Grinch socks for classes. Every week we have a full schedule of classes, and we always aim to kick it up a notch every class. Having been a cheerleader in my high school days, I'm no stranger to these high jumps and the kicks that we do in our kickboxing class. It looks like I'm doing it wrong because everybody else is down on the ground. Well, then I decided to, befriend this guy, John Blick. He owns and operates TAP as a personal trainer, located inside Beat Fitness at the mall. He did a few initial assessments, and then we got to work. He taught me that it's actually good to lift heavy to build muscle. No, ladies, it will not make you look like a man. And he pushes me to do more and more every session. He is often met with deep sighs, booing, and the crackling of my ever-aging bones. He also helps keep me accountable for my nutrition by keeping a close eye on my daily food logs, and if I'm doing it or not. Knowing he is watching has been the biggest push of accountability and exactly what I needed. But mostly, he just wears me out. So earlier this year, I decided to take the next step in my journey and become an instructor myself. So this is me teaching my very first Zumba class after having become a certified Zumba instructor. I love dancing, I love music, and this is just right up my alley. So I just really love doing this. And obviously then all of this work can be a strain on your body, so I also decided to become a certified stretch instructor. So once a week, I lead attendees through a set of stretches meant to help lengthen and rejuvenate the muscles while aiming to increase flexibility. And the 5 minutes of rest time at the end doesn't hurt either. This here is a shot of our awesome group of instructors at Beats Fitness with our very good friend Rollin there in the background. Missing from the picture is Chris, who teaches our kickboxing class. We also have a dance class called Urban Beats, a weightlifting class, and a core strengthening class. But my fitness journey doesn't take a vacation just because I do. These pictures of me continuing my workouts on my recent trips to Panama and Puerto Rico. And nothing motivates me more to get up early for a workout than getting to sit and relax on the beach for the rest of the day. I honestly don't think that's sweat, but probably condensation from the humidity. And at one point, I hit a weight loss plateau, and I'd still been telling myself that I was too busy to cook, and I was doing a lot of eating out. So I decided to start meal prepping each week to cut calories. And not only did I save on calories, but a lot of money as well, because every one of those eat-out dinners was about $30 a piece, and I spent about $100 a week. We often do challenges at Beats to compete for prizes, and one of the ways to earn points is the hashtag sweaty selfie. It always amazes me the difference you see in yourself from the first selfie of a challenge to the last. And I even got my daughter to tag along. And of course, I didn't leave these guys out of the plans. Gigi's life is never dull with them around. And when Gigi's baby is upset, you just have to strap him in a sling and get moving. He was passed out after about 2 songs. And of course, you make a whole lot of new friends along the way. And these friendships are meant to last. And I will cherish the friendships and memories forever. And best of all, our friend Rollin in the top corner, he makes a mean rack of ribs. The sign on the wall in this next picture says, on good days, we work out. On bad days, we work out harder. And if I miss a workout, I'm usually really grumpy the next day because I don't like doing it alone. And I can't imagine a better group of people to share this experience with. Thank you.
Good job. Randy Royse is here to tell us about his tomato paradise. From planting his tomato garden to caring for his tomato plants to harvesting his tomato bounty. Please welcome Randy.
I'm here to talk about how to plan your garden, care for your plants, and harvest your tomatoes. Once you taste a homegrown tomato, there's never going back. I grew up with a family that had a passion for gardening, and that passed on to me. Tomatoes are the #1 homegrown vegetables. Here's the entry of my garden. Planting the garden. What structures do you use for your tomatoes? I decided to use wood. Location. Find in the sunny location. Watering. PVC pipe irrigation with a drip shut-off valves. I decided to put in some raised beds this year for my herbs. Use the drip irrigation over the top. I decided to no-till this year over tilling. Use cardboard for the weed and moisture control, grass clippings over the top, and cedar over that. I put in some flower gardens next to the vegetable garden for pollinators to help pollinate all the vegetables. Daily watering by hand when needed, and with the drip irrigation. I use natural fertilizer, compost tea, for my tomato leaves I trim off and the weeds. Make an excellent fertilizer. Here I am with my next row of tomatoes with my helper Buster, trimming my tomatoes and stringing up my tomato plants. I have structures. My wood structures are 9 to 10 foot tall, stringed down from the top with tomato stakes. Here I am trimming my plants for airflow and for the sun to the tomatoes. All my excess tomato leaves are made into a compost tea. They typically grow 12 to 15 feet with my structures. My cherry tomatoes are one of the popular plants in the garden, the first to produce, and really the most productive of all the tomatoes. A favorite with many folks. I tried many varieties this year. One of them was the Boxcar Willie. I like the name and the story. It's a pretty good tasting tomato too. My tomatoes range from a ½ pound to 3 pounds. This is a Brandywine heirloom tomato that consistently produces 2 pounds plus, and a very good tasting tomato. This is my first zucchini of the year. I use companion planting commanding planting with all my tomatoes. I also grow beans, cucumbers, peppers, pretty much for variety. Here's some I just brought in. I got the Lemon Boy, the Cherokee Purple, Park Swapper, Brandywine, Cherokee Green. I grew 115 tomato plants this year with 21 varieties. I had so many varieties that the neighbors were wanting to try them, so I decided to have a tomato test. So I brought them over, and we named them all, and everybody tasted. The Cherokee Purple and the Park Swapper won out. Those are the two that I grow every year. Even labeled them to make it more efficient. Then I had to decide what I'm going to do with all my leftover plants, tomatoes, so I bought a commercial hydrator and dehydrated my tomato plants. They make great gifts for Christmas, great tasting for snacks. I make salsas with them and into soups. Very tasty. I got a new sunflower this year from Baker's Creek called Chocolate Cherry. Ended up being a beautiful sunflower, multiple flowers on the stalk. So if you like it, go to Baker's Creek. They're awesome plants. Plant a lot of flowers to attract pollinators. Sunflowers is one of my favorites, so I have lots of varieties of those. I planted zinnias this year for the first time, so that's going to be another favorite. In closing, plant what you like to eat, plant only what you can take care of, which is sometimes a problem. Add flowers for the pollinators and the beauty, and for the beautiful butterflies it collects. And in closing, I like to end with a quote I got on my entrance of my garden. Into the garden I go to lose my mind and find my soul. Thank you.
I just want to make a comment that this is the neat thing about Talk20. He's one of my neighbors, and I had no idea that there's these amazing tomato plants less than a block away from my house. So it's just really neat. Lucky Luci always had dreams to do great things. However, she ended up finding herself all alone, with nothing left but a house she considered just as broken as her. Through many of life's challenges, Lucky Luci continued to persevere. In her progress, she has been making inspirational videos for her Facebook page and YouTube that highlight her work both in herself and her home. Now she has continued her dream to help others, working at the Substance Abuse Center of Kansas, obtaining certificates in peer support, and pursuing a career in mental health awareness. Here's Lucky Luci to share her journey and ambitions from the ground up.
I was not expecting to deal with a phone and a microphone, but I got this. I got this. All right. Hi, guys. I'm Lucky Luci. And last January, I had an idea that I could use my life story to help others. I was new to Hutch, so I wasn't sure where to start. I reached out to my stepmom, who directed me here. And immediately, I wanted to be a part of something so inspirational to this community. And next thing you know, here I am. My journey started when my newlywed husband and I left California and bought this extreme fixer-upper. The house had no floors, no plumbing, electrical. It had a giant hole in the roof. It was going to be a huge undertaking, but as a natural homemaker, I was determined to make this house my home. Unfortunately, things didn't turn out the way I had hoped. I completely lost the man I loved to addiction. Our relationship turned toxic and abusive. I felt powerless, isolated, and my mental illness was completely unstable. The entire situation resulted in 3 suicide attempts and my husband going to jail. I found myself all alone with nothing left but a house that was just as broken as I was. But after surviving those 3 attempts, it was clear that I had to find a way to live. I started focusing on my basic needs, establishing myself with horizons. I got a caseworker to help me with food stamps, a psychiatrist to get me back on meds, and a therapist and peer support to help me process my life. But what I needed most was a stable home. So I made it my mission not only to heal myself, but to heal the house as well. The process was painful, and every day I found myself cussing at floor joists and crying over subflooring. But I was determined. We were going to get through this, and I was going to get better. And sure enough, that day finally came where I found myself proudly saying, I did that. Then came a time where my husband was being released from jail, and I was terrified. I did so much healing while he was away, and I was unsure if I was going to get my loving husband back or the monster that he had left as. So I confided in the walls of my house to help me process these new feelings. Writing out the good and the bad, I called it my art installation piece. But the best part of it all was when I was done, my newfound friends came over to help me tear it down. It was a liberating feeling, letting go and getting ready to build something new. Next, it was time for me to put some water in my house. I started digging a trench where I thought the water line was, only to find out a couple days later that I was 5 feet off. This happened to be very symbolic for my life because that was around the time where I realized I had to stop focusing on all my mistakes and redirect myself to my personal growth. And also that wrong trench that I was digging would still be there if I didn't take the time to feel it, because healing is a process. So I continued working. I was framing walls in my house and building door frames, while setting healthy boundaries and setting myself up for new opportunities. I also felt like I was ready to start looking for a job. This was a big move for someone who was so isolated, and at a point where I was scared to even leave my house at times. But I knew I could make a difference. I set an intention to find a place in the world where I could be successful and give others hope and help find them live their best lives. I'm sorry. I'm trying. I applied for the jobs that I knew that I wanted to lead me to where I wanted to go. And while I waited, I continued to make motivational videos of my life and my home on Facebook and YouTube. Videos that showcased how to make cute doors using the little resources I had. A great example that with enough hope and creativity, opportunities can be created. And sure enough, a door opened for me when the Substance Abuse Center of Kansas hired me to be a tech part-time. I knew I had some natural-born skills, but that was only going to take me so far. Continuing to challenge myself was key to my success. Becoming a tech was just a foot in the door, and soon I found myself setting greater goals. The first was to obtain my peer support certificates, and the second was to learn electrical to put in my house. And both brought me great satisfaction when I did achieve my level 1 certificates, and my first outlet was installed. I did that. I was proving to myself more and more that I could do that I could do hard things, that I was in control of my life, and only I could make my life better. So naturally, when I was faced with the reality that I desperately needed a refrigerator, I evaluated my situation, and I believed in my strength, and carried an old abandoned refrigerator that was left upstairs down to my new home using only a hand dolly, some straps, and these arms. Again, I found myself saying, I did that. See, I fought for the floors to stand on, and I tore down walls to build my own life. I dug down deep so water can feed my growth, and I built door frames to get to new opportunities. I learned new things to help me flourish, and I trusted my strength to better my life. But I didn't do it alone. The most important thing that I did do was that I found my support along the way. Without them, I would truly not be alive and here to share this moment with you. So granted, I have so much more work to be done at my home and with myself. And as my grandma always said, we are always people in progress. But today, I am grateful to be at a place in my life where I'm ready to start giving back. And all I need is my next opportunity to help someone else proudly say, I did that. Thanks, guys. It was rough, but I got through it.
Good job. "20 years ago, Aubrey Abbott Patterson moved to Hutch as a newbie in the field of community philanthropy, fully expecting to stay for 3 years tops before moving on to somewhere more exciting. After 2 decades, she's still here, and it's still not boring. Please welcome Aubrey with Falling for Hutch.
Figure out how I'm going to do this. Okay. In 2004, Lance and I moved to Hutchinson from Indianapolis for his new job and to be closer to family. We pulled into town with our baby girl, Sadie Jane, and a black cat named Mosley. The next day, Lance started work at the Boys and Girls Club, and I began nagging Lynette Lacey until she hired me at Hutchinson Community Foundation. In 2005, we bought our first house and joined Leadership Reno County. I used my new master's degree in philanthropy to help build an operating endowment for the Community Foundation. Together, we raised $2.7 million in 2 months. And I knew that Hutch could do anything with vision and generosity like that. In 2006, at the age of 30, I became the CEO of the Community Foundation, and a short 5 months later became mom to a second little girl, Lydia Ray. When I accepted the position, Lance and I knew we would be staying a while, maybe another 3 years, and we were going to need some friends. Fresh out of Leadership Reno County and feeling like we could do anything, a small group of 20 and 30-somethings worked to create Young Professionals of Reno County. Older professionals in the community said yes at every turn and helped us make YP a reality, showing me that people here were open to new ideas and wanted to help young people succeed. The Great Recession struck hard in 08 and 09, and Hutch needed a boost. I introduced Rebecca Ryan as a speaker at the chamber dinner, and the next morning I was thrilled when over 100 people showed up to talk about Rebecca's book, Live First, Work Second, and how to make Hutch a place that more young people would choose. In 2010, our third child, Blake Lawrence, was born. Our kindergartner, Sadie, walked into a newly remodeled elementary school, and we all became proud Salt Hawks. If things at home were hectic with 3 little kids, they were equally as challenging, in both ways good and bad, at work. This is a picture of the day I dropped Blake off at daycare and Lydia at the Early Education Center before I got to work and realized I was wearing mismatched shoes. Really mismatched. Around that same time, Mayor Trish Rose and Shara Gonzalez initiated a new housing task force. And when Siemens was bringing jobs to town in 2012, Greg Benz and I went to the Federal Reserve Bank to seek housing investors. Our ask was unsuccessful, but growing local awareness of our housing crisis, partly helped by Hutch News, sparked hard and important work that continues to this day. In 2013, Carrie Mayu joined our staff. She created events like Envision Hutch and the Unconference, where 50 people from diverse backgrounds were awarded grants for their ideas and collaborative action. With Carrie, we launched the hashtag #IHeartHutch, and our work became more collaborative, inclusive, and fun. Loving a place in your work doesn't mean it's always all roses. Do you remember reverse angle parking, the experiment in downtown Hutch on Third Thursday? What about dual sidewalks, road diets, or rental registration and inspection? Those were hard experiences, but sometimes it works out better than planned. When Dillon's Marketplace opened, the executives agreed not just to build a trail connector, but to give up 66 parking spaces and build the best trailhead in town. It was a huge win, and it allowed us to keep advocating for change. In 2016, we took our kids to South Dakota. On the way home, I got a call that our server had been breached. For 3 weeks, we worked with absolute urgency because everyone we knew was at risk, probably many of you. I got to talk to an FBI agent, but thankfully people's lives were not ruined over the deal, and they were gracious and forgiving. These are my favorite things in Hutchinson, the State Fair. I was a dancing can of Spam in the Follies, and I love the week when June becomes Smallville in Hutchinson. And anyone who says there's nothing to do in Hutchinson has never tried to keep up with local fundraising events. These are just 2, the Tech Gala with my friends and United Way's Over the Edge event that allowed me to rappel over the side of First National Bank. Life is definitely not boring in Hutchinson. I've seen the people of Hutch take care of each other through wildfires, economic disasters, and a global pandemic. This is Del Marie receiving gifts during Match Day in 2020. Our generous community showed up with nearly $500,000 that day and bought over $150,000 worth of Rally Reno gift cards to support small businesses that were struggling. Today, we're focused on building countywide relationships, inspiring the next generation of donors, and ensuring that all people have the opportunity to thrive. Sarah Blake engages students from Reno County high schools in grant making and teaches them philanthropy, and that is one of the highlights every year for me and everyone I work with. For more than a decade, we've asked people to leave 5% of their final estates to the causes they care about most, and hundreds of generous people have done it. Henrietta Jones used the Community Foundation to create legacy funds for Salvation Army, the Library, Arts Center, and Food Bank. We never stop looking for ways to put the Foundation's growing assets to work. Since 2020, we've made loans for rural fiber, a downtown hotel, housing, childcare, and now to help the Villanuevas purchase Carolyn's Essenhaus, which fulfilled their dream while allowing people in Arlington to keep their restaurant. For 20 years, I've fallen for Hutch through my work, and for me, it comes down to a sense of belonging, being able to fully participate in the community, and knowing that people care about me and my family. Thankfully, I get to work with this amazing team each day to make those things true for the people around us, too. And finally, as our kids grow up, Lance and I hope they will feel a sense of belonging. They'll know how to show up for others, and they'll look for opportunities to be generous, collaborative, inclusive, gracious, forgiving, and fun, just as Hutchinson has been for us.
Well, I knew I was going to be in that picture, but it's still like kind of meta. I don't know. Thank you all. Thank you all for sharing your stories. Let's give one more round of applause for everybody who spoke tonight. I hope, like Ryan said, you were surprised, about somebody's backyard that might be just down the street, or that you're more curious about the people on your block and what might be a part of their lives. I want to thank our support team, Christopher Acker with Salt City Sound, who's been live streaming tonight, and Lucas Singleton, who's recording the video camera, and all the library staff. Let's give them a round of applause for doing all this. Remember that if you want to keep the connection going tonight, you can come over to Sandhills Brewing. As Tarynn invited us, we can show up in Nickerson tomorrow at 7 a.m. at her house and for Clear Nearly Days. And as multiple people said, there's so much going on in this community that oftentimes we're having to choose between competing events because we can't be everywhere at once. So I hope you're paying attention, following the Hutchinson Tribune and the events that they're sharing, and showing up whenever you can. We will be back in this room 6 months from now. We don't have the specific date nailed down, but January 2025. If you have an idea for a story, please reach out to us and tell us. And if you have somebody in the room or not in the room who you think, I think they should be up here telling their story, reach out to us too. Because as I said at the beginning, we believe everyone has a story to tell. So please don't doubt yourself or others. So thank you all, and good night.